And our guided tour through this main building, palace building, we will visit the palace together, talk about the history, stories of Wartburg Castle's history over almost 1,000 years of history, and then you will have the possibility to visit our museum art collection, including Martin Luther's chamber. Last but not least, the very last room there. But right now, we're starting here inside this palace. Yeah, he was part of a hunting party and came to this hill and was so impressed by the landscape, by the view, that he exclaimed, "Wartberg, du sollst mir ein Burg werden." In English, "Wait, mountain, you shall be my castle." According to legend, his exclamation, "Wartberg," is reason for the name Wartburg. Actually, there was a watchtower, a so-called Warte. Warte is no German word. Warte was standing on this hill, and that is the actual reason for the name Wartburg. Burg means castle. So he's known as the founder, and he's also founding father of the first provincial counts of Thuringia, of Thüringen, the area in central Germany that is called Thüringen even nowadays. Back then the territory was quite bigger, had a double size from the rivers Rhine in western Germany to the river Saale in eastern Germany, a double size in comparison to nowadays. But Wartburg Castle was located at the center of that territory. And it was one of more than 45 castles in the possession of these counts, of that dynasty of counts. These counts, that family was called Ludovingians, because most of them were called Ludwig. So Ludwig the Jumper had a son named Ludwig I. His son was the first count of Thuringia. His son, grandson of Ludwig the Jumper, is the first place. And then it evolved into an inhabited castle over the years and became one of the most important castles in central Germany and the most important castle, the main residence of the Counts of Thuringia. And that's why they built the palace. And if you may follow me, I will show you some models of the palace building process. The second story was added and the building was finished. But a few years later, about 5 years later, they added a third story. But they took the roof off, added the story, and put the roof back on. The palace itself is one of the best preserved. So it decayed, it became ruinous over the years. But in the 19th century, at the time of Romanticism, it was rebuilt as the ideal castle, a romantic impression of a castle that grew right here. What became Wartburg Castle. It is nowadays part of the UNESCO World Heritage List since 1999, and it is called the ideal castle. It is the only castle in Germany that is part of the UNESCO, and indeed it is. And the eagle, as symbol for nobility, is holding the people in its hands, controlling the people. So, let me
so that people are writing noble speaking.
They can do that indeed. The eagles in the corners, facing down in this case, that doesn't have any significance. It's just the eagles appearing everywhere. Even though, in this case, the heraldic animal of the Ludovingians, of the Count's family, was a lion, and still is. The coat of arms of Thuringia nowadays is showing us a red and white striped lion on blue ground, since the Middle Ages until nowadays. The room itself looks much more elegant. It's called dining hall, and bringing the men's and the women's quarters together. It really was a dining hall in the Middle Ages, we do not know. But it is designed like a medieval dining hall, a medieval private room. You see the whitewashed walls, the reddish decorated window and door openings like in the Middle Ages. And you see the room decorated with tapestries, in this case from the 14th and 15th century original. This longer tapestry is showing us some animals symbolizing the courtly virtues. The lion as symbol of strength and courage. You see the stag as a symbol of wisdom. The griffin stands for vigilance, and the unicorn for purity. Purity. Again, the lion is that, but these are the courtly virtues. And in addition to these tapestries, all the other furnitures, except for the table and the chairs, all the other furnitures, chests and cupboard, are original from the 15th and 16th century. Table and chairs came here in the 19th century, made in the 19th century, in the neo-Romanesque or Romanesque revival style. Fitting into this. If you compare this castle to others, you can see that this was a very important one just by having a look at the installments, at the luxurious
we might call it amenities.
And then, Did you say accommodations or what is it?
Amenities. You mentioned unity and purity. What else?
Just looks like the Knights Hall, actually, architecturally designed just like the Knights Hall. You can see the column at the center. Another eagle capital right here. You see the cross vaulting, the chimney in the corner, the chimney, and as I mentioned, we do find a chimney in every room, which was luxurious because actually you could find one or maybe a second room heatable by the chimney. To have 9 at all, 9 chimneys in one building, it was very special. This is what we do or did find here. This room was decorated in the 20th century to honor Saint Elizabeth and her life. So you see the glass mosaic and the scenes on the walls describing her life. Starting to the right of the fireplace, where you can see Master Kingsor. Master Kingsor was a magician, legendary person, magician, and poet from Hungary, predicting the birth of Saint Elizabeth. She was born in 1207 as a Hungarian princess. And Hungary is where she lived for the first only 4 years of her life. This next scene is showing us how the emissaries of the Count of Thuringia came to the royal court of Hungary and took the 4-year-old princess between her parents, and took her to Thuringia to Wartburg Castle. She came here to get engaged and later to marry the future Count of Thuringia, Ludwig IV. see them laying here in that golden cradle, showing that they were only kids when they got engaged. She came here at the age of 4 and was immediately engaged to Ludwig. She was 4 years old. Ludwig was 11 years older than her. And only 10 years later, when she was 14, they got married, which means, from nowadays perspective, she was a child when she was engaged and married. At that time, a white woman. What makes her life so special is that she didn't think much of that luxurious life of a noble person. She started to take care of the people, to act like it's described in the Bible, the acts of mercy. In the Gospel of Matthew, you find them described very clear what she did, actually. And this is what makes her life so special. She started to give food to the people in town, to feed the hungry, to give something to drink to the thirsty, to give clothes to the naked ones, and so on and so on. And this picture is a rather symbolic one, but you see her here laying down her countess's crown in front of the cross in front of Jesus. With the description, she didn't want to wear a golden crown when Jesus was suffering with a crown of thorns on his head, so she was laying down her crown, and so laying down, well, symbolically laying down her dignity. Even though she stayed a noble woman, she stayed the Countess of Thuringia, she did act like one. And that's why she did it. She did it because of the Middle Ages. And that's what we have to consider. The faith in God and in the life after death was much more present than it is nowadays. People were starting to imagine what might happen. Widow with 3 kids, making the decision to leave the castle and not to return, not to marry again. That would have been another option. She took the only other way to leave the castle and to live in a monastery. But that meant to leave her kids behind. That's what she did. She decided to live, to give her life for the faith, to live for God's sake, and to live in a very ascetic way. And that asceticism is finally the reason for her very early death in 1231 at the age of 24. Very young aging for that time. We're talking about an average life expectancy of about 48 to 50 years. She died at the age of 24, but was canonized in 1235, means 4 years after death, which is the fastest canonization of a woman ever. And as I mentioned, even Martin Luther, who didn't think much of the veneration of saints, was looking at Saint Elizabeth and calling her a saint by her acts, not by not spoken saint, but canonized. The room at the castle, presumably there was another chapel building, auxiliary palace that had great flames in the 12th century, and that's why they designed this room as a chapel, made this room become a chapel. 13th century, at that time, remains this wall painting, so-called seku, a painting on a dry wall showing us against the Catholic Church. To find out the truth, to try to make the people understand the truth and the lies of the Catholic Church. Martin Luther came Wartburg Castle after being outlawed by the emperor in 1521. He came here on the 4th of May 1521 on his way from Worms back to Wittenberg, where he was a teacher, was a lecturer of Bible studies at the University in Wittenberg. And on his way, he passed the Thuringian border, an outlaw man, and reached the territory at that time of Saxony. And Frederick the Wise from Saxony, at that time, kind of count of that territory, Saxony, was a man protecting Martin Luther. So he held his hand over him and he protected him as soon as he stepped on his territory. And that's what happened right here. Wartburg Castle was the first reachable location on the territory of Frederick the Wise, the first location to get to be protected. And at that time when Martin Luther came here, Wartburg Castle was ruinous. It had no importance to anybody. Not like in the 12th century as the main residence of the counts, not like in the 19th century as the residence of the counts. At that time, important theological texts among them, a collection of sermons. These sermons could be even more important than his translation of the Bible, because these sermons were to be used by the preachers in the churches to give information, to give the doctrine of Martin Luther, or to spread the doctrine of Martin Luther among the people, to make them understand the content of the Bible. This is what these sermons were made for by him. Problem with the translation of the Bible, indeed, it helped much later, but at that time, you have to imagine, people couldn't read themselves. They couldn't even understand the language, the Bibles, also before the Bibles were written in, and they couldn't. So they went to churches to listen to the preachers and to listen to their explanations of the content of the Bible. And that's why Martin Luther gave, with these sermons, with these written sermons, he gave an instruction of how to inform the people. Indeed, from nowadays perspective, and from that linguistic point of view, the translation of the Bible into a first standardized German language was most important for us. The language he created at that time, by translating from the old Greek language into German, the language he created was the one to become our today's German language. But for the people back then, it was that collection of the so-called Wartburg apostles. Indeed, Martin Luther left Wartburg Castle in March 1522, went back to Wittenberg. Reformation was going on, but he found a man who started to print his German translation of the New Testament in September 1521. It was published at the Burgmesse in Leipzig in 1521 as the so-called September Testament. In September it was published and was sold out so fast that they printed another 3,000 exemplars, 3,000 copies until December. So you can see how important it was for people that the translation was published and they bought a book. He found a man printing a book from an outlaw and excommunicated man. He paid for it, even though he didn't know if it was bought later. He paid for it and people bought it. And that's giving us an impression of how important it is. Let me tell you some other important stories. You because it's not only the biblical content that Martin Luther tried to spread among people. It's also his doctrine and his try to make the people focus on not on the the faith or the doctrine, the basic thing that people were trying to believe or trying to have faith, and trying to believe in their salvation by acting in a certain way, but by believing in Jesus Christ and God Himself, and that is the most important thing that Martin Luther tried to give the people, believing in the faith, but it's so
Faith alone.
by faith alone,
Grace.
by grace alone. So to have faith in God, by faith alone, people would feel that grace, and by grace alone, they would be justified. Thanks to Jesus. Thanks to Jesus, who was sacrificing Himself and was suffering for people.
Is it Scripture alone? Is that the three things? Faith alone, grace alone, and Scripture alone, or?
Scripture alone is there are so many solas.
Solas,
many,
yeah.
But these are the most important ones.
Yeah.
Sola fide.
Sola
Now
Scripture,
I was always
Yeah.
searching for the Latin version.
Yeah.
Sola fide, sola gratia, sola scriptura.
Yeah.
Solus Christus. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
So yeah.
Lots of souls.
Yeah.
Lots of onlys.
Right, but this is also, this is where I find the connection. This is going back to Saint Elizabeth as well, because she acted according to the sola scriptura, what was written in the Bible, and this is where she found these acts of mercy. And
Start coming. Just awesome.
in the style of the 19th century, the Romantic style, and we do see another so-called fresco painted on a fresh wall in here, depicting the so-called minstrels' war. Minstrels, or Minne singers' war. Minne is an old German word for love, poetry about love. This minstrels' war took place, according to legend, took place here in 1206, 1207, beginning of the 13th century. At that time, Wartburg Castle was one of the most important centers of cultural living in Europe. And it is since then called the cradle of German national literature. Hermann I was Count of Thuringia at that time, was, by the way, the first count that was not called Ludwig. Hermann I, you see right here next to his wife, Sophie, having a feast in this hall. Many guests were living at the castle at that time, and legend tells that among these guests were 6 of the most important poets from that time. You may have heard of Walter von der Vogelweide or Wolfgang von Eschenbach, who wrote even part of his Parzival here at this castle. They were living here, and one princess of Hungary, who later became the Countess of Thuringia, born on the 7th of July in 1207. And everyone was so distracted In the 19th century, there was a very famous composer, Richard Wagner, who took this legend, combined it with the so-called Tannhäuser legend, and created an opera called Tannhäuser and the Minstrel's War at Wartburg Castle. That opera is known worldwide and played here at the castle upstairs in our concert hall, the Great Hall. We will have a short look at that room. That's the very last room. Before we go there, let's have a short look at the so-called Landgrafenzimmer. And it was decorated as well in the 19th century by Moritz von Schwind, showing us seven more frescoes. And it is called the Count's Chamber because these pictures show stories about the Counts of Thuringia, starting with the legend of the foundation, where you can see the Junker again, having a view over this country, over this landscape. As I told you, he explained Wartburg, Great Mountain, you shall be my castle, and made a plan to construct this castle, this first wooden border fortification up here, even though he was not the owner of the land, of this territory. And what did he do? He ordered his 12 knights to bring soil from his lands up here to spread it over the hill. And so they took their swords.
Claiming the land.
Yes. They were having it into the ground, and they were claiming the land. So they swore that the land was his own. He built the castle on his own land, on his floor. So from that time on, Ludwig was known as the founder of Wartburg Castle. Ludwig II is the other man you already met downstairs on the tombstone. Ludwig II, the man who built the palace. And may I mention Ludwig IV, husband of Saint Elizabeth, who was taming an escaped lion, which shall show us that he had such a courageous and made such a strong impression that the lion was tamed and was going in front of him, while Ludwig only held up his hands. Well, it also symbolizes the strength of the Count's family, of the dynasty of Ludovinger, and it is showing us the heraldic animal, not only on this picture, but on the doors and on the base of the column, which is connected by the column to the capital, which shows us the eagle again. So, in this case, not only symbol of nobility, but also symbol of the empress. The eagle connected to the lions. Right. So now from that time on, the time of the Count of Thuringia, until nowadays, the castle, is showing us some very important stories in history.
Which one of these Ludwigs built the Disney?
None of them. That was Ludwig II, King of Bavaria. So the name Ludwig is a very common, was at that time, and even in the 19th century, a very common name in Germany. And the King Ludwig II from Bavaria, southern Germany, built the Disney castle in Neuschwanstein and copied our Great Hall. So he came here anonymously. He visited the castle, and he was so impressed by our Great Hall upstairs. We'll have a look at that hall. That he had to make a copy in his church. We do have the original.
He was no relation, not in that camp.
No. Right, so well, now you have an impression of the castle's history over almost 1,000 years. The Great Hall in the Great Hall today. So we can have a look inside. Then I will show you the way to the museum and tell you some more information, give you some more information about the hall. We will have a short look inside the hall before we go on. So let's go up.
About 350 square meters of size on each story indeed as well. You see all the three chimneys in here that come up from the lights hall, the dining hall and the mosaic room. And you see a flag above the second chimney, which is the flag of the first German student corporation from 1817. And that special student corporation was the one organizing the so-called assembly of the German student corporations in 1870. That was the first assembly of student corporations ever in Germany. And they did it because he tried to fight against they tried to fight for a unified German nation, same rights for everyone. He tried to fight for democracy in Germany. It took a long time to get there, but these were the first steps into the direction of democracy in Germany. It is also the first flag combining the colors red, black, gold on the flag ever. Therefore, this is the one rated to become authorized. Imagine the room. And this is the room that was called into Disney Castle. But this one is the original. Even though you have to imagine that the walls up here were ruinous, very ruinous in the 19th century, and they had to be reconstructed. Now, in this case, other than downstairs, when you compare it to the wall paintings downstairs, this is more of a realistic. This has more of a realistic character. So we are not talking about romanticism, the romantic imagination of a medieval design. This is historicistic design, which means people back then in the 19th century were trying to find original historical images to make this look more realistic. And it's called one of the famous ensembles of historicism. As you see, with many occasions, events in Montana, Arizona, Mexico. It's they are.
Yeah, it is, or the Great Hall was the last room of our tour together. So from now on, you can walk here around and speak. You can have a look at everything in the next 6 rooms until you find Martin Luther's chamber as the very last room. I thank you very much for your attention. You have another question?
Is this the?
This is one Bible, but not the big Bible. Just follow me to the 3rd room. I will show it because most people, it happens that most people don't find it, don't see it. They pass it and they never see it. So let me show you. Okay, and you can go back.
Well, somebody can show it. Like, we don't.
Well, in the Middle Ages, it starts Pergamon, animal skin, but from 1394 in the Middle Ages, people started to create paper from organic fibers, almost like nowadays. So they started to print the Bibles, starting more or less with the Lutheran area, the Lutheran time, to print it on paper like we know nowadays, not animal skin anymore.
Mm-hmm.
They started in late 14th century paper and not pergament. And this was printed, this copy was printed in 1541. It was revised almost every year by Martin Luther and his co-workers. So when Martin Luther left Wartburg Castle in 1522, and his new translation of the New Testament was printed and published from 1522 on, again and again, he started to translate the Old Testament.
Do you know which prophet that is? I can read the prophet.
Isaiah.
Oh,
Isaiah. We switch pages every now and then because the light has too much impact on the paper. Yeah. So this is why I had to which page is open now. They started to translate the Old Testament because Martin Luther didn't do it alone. The Old Testament he didn't translate alone. It was much heavier. It was not that easy to translate it because they translated it from the Hebrew language. Whereas he had some help by translating the New Testament from the old Greek language because he didn't understand the language entirely, didn't speak or know the Greek language entirely himself. He had help by his friend and a Greek professor, the Old Testament was translated by him and many others. And all of them revised the translation almost every year. There was printed another revision of the entire Bible. And that's why we see some handwritings right here next to the actual text. These are the handwritings from Martin Luther and his co-workers. So we do not know exactly which ones are his, but when we're lucky, we can see Martin Luther's handwriting in. It could be his on this page. Well, this is the original exemplar, the entire Bible.
It's pretty
And
cool.
right there in the corner, see the two people facing us? Yeah. The smaller ones are Martin Luther and his wife, Katharina. The bigger ones are Martin Luther's father and mother, his parents. Original.
And those are originals.
And worldwide, only ones they do exist. this is our moment. Yeah, well, this is me saying goodbye, and thank you to you. Hope we see you again later, anytime. And yeah, I wish you a pleasant stay. And you leave Wartburg and Eisenach today.
Yeah.
So a great journey wherever you go. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Just one thing, you all will empty out into the souvenir room, right?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, so you'll have to find your way and go to kind of like this long, narrow, I'm gonna go outside now.
I want not to miss the Bible because
Oh,
I'm
there,
serious.
yeah,
So
I'm so glad.
I came here to show
Yeah,
So-
okay. Okay, hey, are you allowed to take a photo?
I am allowed, but
Okay.
it won't be necessary.
Yeah, I understand, thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you very
so
much,
much,
Sarah.
and hope to see you again.
You know, we have the O with the two spots over. Yeah. So, yeah.
I think it's, I saw it in there. Yeah, it's in there somewhere. Yeah, right there. Junker Jorg.
This is just like Mount Lacrosse, huh? Grandad's Bluff, sorry. lot of trees down there. Oh, there's Tom headed out.
Like a Capitol building.
The one on the hill?
One straight ahead.
Yeah, I saw that one earlier.
Are we the last ones sitting down? Yeah.
Really just didn't.
Is that what you guys went in?
Ich habe 2 Jahre schon.
Ich glaube, du bist
Nein, ich bin 2 Jahre hier.
Ja, Grundschule ist schon ein bisschen her.
Ja, schon länger.
Can you sing him happy birthday in German?
Or it has that little after.
Viel Spaß.
Y'all sing it.
Does somebody have a birthday today?
No, but yeah, right there.
What?
Your birthday?
It's your birthday?
Yeah.
You just want him to sing the song.
I did not know. Yes. You can sing to me. Yes, in a few days. Yes, hers is in a few days. Yeah.
How old are you gonna be?
No.
You will never see me again.
When you get as old as I am, you just throw it out there. I'll be 74.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
I would have said you were much younger than that.
Good job.
Good recovery.
Yeah, always.
You sing it in German.
It's in German.
Ah, komm.
Ja, come on.
Ich brauche vorher einen Schnaps.
Ja, so wird noch.
Okay.
We'll help you. Happy birthday. How do you do it?
Erinnern. Happy birthday.
Auf Deutsch sollst du singen.
German.
Und wen singen wir?
I,
Wen singen wir noch?
I'm
Zum Geburtstag.
Ja.
Zum Geburtstag viel Glück. Zum Geburtstag viel Glück. Zum Geburtstag alles Gute. Zum Geburtstag viel Glück. So, hier ist übrigens ein Schnaps.
Den kriegst du von mir.
Eigentlich zum Lecker.
Thank you, boys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think he said that's his mom.
I don't know.
Thank you. Have a nice time in Germany.
Adieu? No? Adieu? Adieu?
No, in Bavarian, Servus.
Servus.
Entweder wenn du die Dialyse kriegst, dass in einer gewissen Zeit
Danke.
Nieren überhaupt nicht mehr mit.
Dankeschön.
Adieu.
Nein, Nieren.
Adios.
Oder